Hello everyone and welcome back to my F1 2020 career mode here with Haas of One team for the season 1 finale. Yes, it is the final episode of the first season in our Formula 1 career. It was a very shortened season this year, only 10 races. This will change for next year. I will definitely promise the calendar next year will be definitely longer than 10 races. I wanted to try out this format of 10 races. So yeah, final race of the season, there will be a regulation change for next year. So it will be important to save enough resource points and gain those upgrades back that you lose through the regulation change. So we're just gonna skip through the calendar, go towards the season break, and now we have enough R&D points to get those upgrades back that we lost because of the regulation change, but only two, so only have one more to go. So we probably won't lose any performance going into next year. Next year will be our second year in Formula 1, but we still have one more race to go in our first season in Formula 1, and we still have the target to get into the top 10 of the championship. We're currently in 11th place, a few points behind Lance Stroll, who's in 10th, and now let's go into the race weekend. So here we are then in the race weekend for the final race of this 2020 Formula 1 season in my career mode, and as you could maybe see just now, rain is forecasted for the end of qualifying, which will make things interesting, so it will be important to get a lap in at the beginning of qualifying. The final R&D chart for this season, Mercedes end as quickest in front of Red Bull, and Racing Point are third quickest. Ferrari are only the sixth quickest car, but it's very close between them all. So yeah, 11th in the championship, and now let's go into qualifying. So here we are then for our first flying lap of this final qualifying session in this 2020 Formula 1 season. As we go into turn 1, not as good as I hoped for, but yeah, overall it was a really great season. I think, we've had 9 races until now. We've basically secured the P7 in the Constructors' Championship, which is great. I would have never thought at the beginning of the season that we would end up in P7. Sometimes we have the second slowest car on the grid. So really happy where we put the car. And yeah, we come to the end of our first flying lap. Across the line, it's only P7, but we still have 2 more flying laps to go, so no panicking yet. So now we move to the start of our second flying lap in this qualifying session for the Brazilian Grand Prix, the season finale of Season 1 in my F1 2020 career mode. Our first season in Formula 1, we are currently all the way down in P19, so we have to definitely improve on this lap. No grid penalties for this race after we had grid penalties in 2 of the last 3 races. And yeah, the season coming to an end. It was a very shortened season, and as I said in the beginning, I'll definitely promise the calendar for next year will be a bit longer to make things, I think, more interesting. I thought 10 races would be quite interesting, but I figured out that maybe 16 races is a perfect length for a Formula 1 game here in 2020 this season. But now we come across line, we've gained 9/10 and we're up into P16, which is not great, but could be worse. And we have 1 more flying lap to go in this qualifying session, so let's try to get it all together. So here we are then, as we come out for our final flying lap in 2020 in the qualifying session, and Sebastian Vettel is the car right behind us, which actually made me a bit nervous, because I didn't know, because obviously Ferrari is the better car, the Ferrari, and yeah, I was actually scared that he would come really close to us, but that fear disappeared quite quickly, and we're gonna give it our all for this final run in this 2020 Formula 1 season. As we are currently green, we're currently improving our personal best lap time, which is great. Let's see where we'll end up at the end of this lap. A few more corners to go, but we will jump to the end of the lap. We've gained almost 2 tenths, a across the line. What's it going to be for the final qualifying session of the year? So, Valtteri Bottas secures pole position ahead of Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen splits the two Mercedes. We are all the way down in P18 and our teammate is in P16, but now onto the race.
Formula One returns to Sao Paulo once again with the stage set for what promises to be another classic Brazilian Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel famously clinched his third championship here in 2012, and in 2016, Max Verstappen treated us to one of the finest wet weather drives of all time. It's an unusual anti-clockwise race here at Interlagos, where the Sao Paulo locals are packed into the grandstands at each of the 15 corners around this classic 2.7-mile circuit. Two very fast sections bookend the famous and highly technical Sector 2, where getting a good run out of Junsao into one of the two DRS zones will be the key to any overtaking prospects today. Anthony Davidson, thanks for joining me once again for the Grand Prix. Now I want to ask you about Lewis Hamilton. What a season they've had. A well-deserved championship victory, and the pressure now surely off with the title already in the bag.
It really is well-deserved. I wouldn't say it's been a faultless title challenge, but certainly one that has been consistent and well-managed. Here's hoping they let off a bit of steam today and give us an exciting race.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Valtteri Bottas lines up on pole position and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Hamilton, Leclerc, Alexander Albon and Ricciardo, Vettel, Sainz, Stroll and Esteban Ocon, Norris, Gasly, Daniel Kvyat and Raikkonen, Grosjean, Giovinazzi, the captain and George Russell, Perez and Nicholas Latifi. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track and get this Grand Prix underway.
So here we are then, on the grid for the final race of this Formula 1 season, of this shortened season. Just getting the right fuel on board. And now for the final time, we build up the revs and wait for 5 red lights. It's lights out and away we go. We get an awesome start as we pass our team of Roman Grosjean and Kimi Raikkonen as we dive down the inside into turn 1. Without hitting anyone, we get a warning for collision with Kimi Raikkonen. That was probably for something that occurred a bit before, probably right at the start. As we're up into P12 from P18 in 2 corners. We once again in this final race of this Formula 1 season get a great start. We're being a bit cautious into the next few corners as we don't want to hit Lando Norris and Esteban Ocon, who have a great fight right in front of us. As we may be going to try round the outside. No, we're a bit too far away and don't have the best pace. They're still fighting. I think they're fighting for the whole half the lap. So they're still fighting in front of us. We're P12. It's really hard to make a move because they're so close to each other. You never know what's going to happen. But we get the chance. Round the outside, we get better acceleration. Round the outside of Esteban Ocon. Can we make the move? No. He just edges back in front of us. And we keep P12. He slows down awkwardly mid-apex. And we almost hit the rear of his car. Or we actually do slightly hit the rear of his car a bit. As we slipstream Esteban Ocon. But we don't really have the speed compared to the Renault down this long straight in Brazil. As we break the turn 1, we break way too late. We lock up, go very deep into turn 1. We have to cut the corner a bit, but we will let Esteban Ocon back pass because that would have been not a fair overtake on Esteban Ocon. You know, things have to stay fair and square here. So yeah, we stay in P12 on this opening lap of the Brazilian Grand Prix, but great opening lap from us once again, as almost always. Great stuff. As we now jump all the way to lap 3, and as you can see on the top left, yellow flags are out. What happened? There's no information yet. Antonio Giovinazzi is out of the session and the virtual safety car has been deployed. But it ended at the end of lap 3, and our virtual safety car restart was the worst I ever saw in my life. or the worst that we could have imagined, as we lock up into turn 1 for good measure too, as we lose a chunk of time towards Esteban Ocon. He just got the virtual safety car restart perfect. We kind of messed it up, or we did mess it up quite badly, and we are now still in P12 though. We lost a bit to Esteban Ocon, but still long ways to go, about 15 laps to go, so anything can happen. We still have the pit stops to go, so we will be still hopeful. As we jump all the way to lap 6, we have caught back up to Esteban Ocon, which is great, and there's a huge train of cars in front of us, I think, which is led by Alex Albon. I don't know if he has a slight problem with this car, if he has a bit of damage, I have no idea, but he's definitely holding up the cars in front of us. But that's obviously great news for us, as we gain on the cars in front of us, as we gain on Esteban Ocon, but he covers the inside very smartly, so we don't think of making a move down the inside, as it was in lap 1. He slows down really awkwardly mid-apex. I have no clue, maybe he hits the brakes on purposely and like a small brake check, but I don't know if that is like put into the game or that is actually possible in this game. You know, obviously it's not real life, so yeah, but that always holds us up quite massively, so we don't get a good run on Esteban Ocon, because our acceleration out of the final corner is actually really good, except that we just hit Esteban Ocon all the time. But yeah, still long race to go. Let's see what we can do. As we jump now to lap 8, and then the option to pit and try to undercut the cars in front of me pops into my mind as I tell my engineer to box this lap. I think the mandatory planned pit stop would have been lap 9 or something. I have no idea, but I've decided to come into the pits on this lap because they're not as bunched up anymore as they were before. I thought, yeah, maybe it would have been better to pit even one lap earlier than lap 8, so on lap 7, because they were really bunched up there, and we would have been come out of free air after our pit stop and could have hammered down the laps and tried to undercut them. But we're still really close to Esteban Ocon, Alex Albon, and Lando Norris is relatively close too in the front. As we again gain on Esteban Ocon through this final corner, we're not as close as before. Get the power down. Pierre Gasly's right behind us, so yeah, lap 8 of this Brazilian Grand Prix, we will come in to the pits for our one and only pit stop in this race from soft to medium tires. I love this pit entry, to be honest. You can take so much speed into the pit entry. Obviously you have to brake in time so you don't go over the speed limit, but that might sound weird, but the pit entry is really cool to drive in. As we come in for our pit stop, how long? 3.1, not the best, but could have been worse as always. And the pit exit is pretty cool too, but you have to be careful that you don't spin, because the tires are really cold, and if you get on the power too fast, you sometimes spin. But now we need to have a great outlap as always to try and make the undercut work. Come on. So we've done our outlap. It was reasonably okay. As we break into turn 1, I think the outlap could have been better, could have been worse. But as you can see on the top left and bottom left, as we go really wide, as we kind of warning for corner cutting, only Lance Stroll and Sebastian Vettel have pitted, and the gap to Lance Stroll is 2 seconds. I don't know if that's closer than it was before. As we jump to the end of our second lap on these new sets, but as you can see on the bottom left now, there is a yellow dot of Esteban Ocon, and we have jumped Esteban Ocon. Yes, the undercut has worked dreams for us, and we get ahead of Esteban Ocon by miles. Actually, he's 1.5 seconds behind us. Wow, the undercut has really worked, but Alex Albon still hasn't pitted, so we will need another great lap now to try to get ahead of him too and get into the points. So we jump to the end of lap 11, and we have DRS off Lando Norris. We have closed up to Lando Norris. Break into turn 1. He's right behind Lance Stroll, and Sebastian Vettel is a bit further away in P8. And as you can see on the bottom left and top left, there is Alex Albon. We have jumped Alexander Albon in this Brazilian Grand Prix too, and we are up into P10, which means points. Points from P18 on the grid, and it might even still be more than 1 point, as we are just behind Lando Norris. But wow, I was buzzing at this time. We are up into P10 of this Brazilian Grand Prix. We have jumped Esteban Ocon and Alexander Albon. Let's go! As now we come through all the way to lap 16, and as you can see, we've like really lost to Lance Stroll, who's now in P9, and Lando Norris, who's in P8. You know, we have the battle going on with Lance Stroll, who's going to get into the top 10 of the championship. We were 2 points behind him coming into this weekend. If it stays like this, he gains another point on us, so we will sadly won't make it into the top 10 of the driver's standings in our first year of Formula 1. But to be really honest with you, at this moment I didn't really care. I was more happy about the race and the fact that we are in P10 right now in this Brazilian Grand Prix, the final race of the season. What a final race that would be, from P18 all the way up into P10. But we still have 2 more tough laps to go, as Esteban Ocon or Alex Albon is now right behind us. So yeah, 2 more tough laps to go. And now we come from lap 17 into lap 18 as we go really right from the final corner, which means Esteban Ocon will have a great run on us on this long back main straight here in Brazil. As he tries to go to the outside, we just go to the outside in the final moment. Might have been a bit risky or a bit unfair because I moved a bit late, but nevertheless we are fighting for P10. I really want this point. It would be so great. It would make me so happy to finish in the points where Esteban Ocon gets ahead of us. We brake later than him and we go towards the inside and stay in P10 of this final lap of the final race of this first year in Formula 1 for us. And we have a few more corners to go. It looks good. So what a race this was, from P18 up into P10. We will finish this final Grand Prix of our first year in Formula 1, of our successful first year in Formula 1 in P10. Let's go, great stuff.
That's it then, they've taken the win here as we wrap up another fantastic Formula 1 season. Tell me, Ant, how did they manage to achieve this win?
I think a large part of the result comes down to temperament. They were able to keep their heads when everyone around them was losing theirs, and that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy and to stay out of trouble.
And I can see the drivers starting to approach the podium for the victory celebrations. A real team victory today. Everybody played their part. Congratulations then to Mercedes, your race winners today.
So yeah, we finish in P10 on this final Grand Prix of the year as Valtteri Bottas wins ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and Charles Leclerc is once again in P3. Great stuff what he does with the Ferrari. The Ferrari in this game in 2020 is not as bad as in real life, and as you can see, we've actually fallen down all the way to P12 because Carlos Sainz had a really good weekend, an awesome weekend, and he moved his way into P10 of the driver's standings. As you know, Lewis Hamilton won the title, and AlphaTauri and Williams are the only teams to not score any points. We end up the season in P7. Great final race from us, really great. What an end to the season. It couldn't have been better. So now here we are back at our team HQ for the final time of this season. I think it was a really great season. I know it was pretty shortened, only 10 races. I wanted to try out a new format. I would change that for next season. But yeah, a successful first year in Formula 1. We ended up in the points 5 times. Here you can see the final R&D performance chart of the season. We are the 3rd worst team. We have a regulation change for next year, so we'll see how we'll line up for next year. So yeah, I say it once again. 5 times we finished in the points with an awesome P4 in Austria. That was, I think, the highlight of the year. We had great battles at the back of the grid, which were fun, but also with, big name drivers such as Sebastian Vettel in Austria, with Charles Leclerc in Japan, the fight with Pierre Gasly in the Netherlands was really great. So yeah, tomorrow I'll bring out a video with pre-season of season 2. I hope you enjoyed this first season. If you enjoyed so, smash that like button and subscribe for more content of my F1 2020 Career Mode. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.